Well, good morning. Welcome back to another hunt for Red October. And we're already facing some significant challenges. It's been a heck of a windy few days and there's already plenty of foliage on the ground. And it looks like it's going to be, well, there's a little bit of colour in the sky, but I think any colour, any light is going to be very quickly eradicated by overcast conditions. Might be a little bit breaking through, but I'm back into one of the woods that I was shooting in a few weeks ago to see how the colour has developed. So not quite sure how long this vlog will be, depending on the light I guess, but let's take a wander down and see how the colour has developed. So there's actually some lovely little scenes just on this path, as there was last time I was here, but of course the autumn colours have definitely burst a little bit more. Now the little scene behind me is what I ended up shooting, that panoramic, and a lot of the leaves from the tops of those trees have been blown away, so this scene may not work now. Now this wasn't the scene that I was kind of rushing towards. There's still a little bit of foliage sort of on the tops of the trees, but then of course you're bringing in a lot of that sky. Now this little sapling has obviously taken on quite a lot of colour, but it's a bit shabby looking, and the ferns still are extremely green, so I guess they don't change for a long time yet. Let's carry on bimbling. But yeah, it might be, as I take my way walking back, there might be a couple of scenes using the path, because one of the benefits, I think I mentioned this last time, one of the benefits of this little woodland and that path is it kind of undulates, which means at times you're actually looking down into the wood, which of course allows me to remove any sort of bright highlights in the sky, so I might look for some of those. Now the light, there's obviously sort of some cloud over to the east. The sun has risen 15-20 minutes ago, and I can see that sort of illuminating, which of course if that cloud was to come over and be sort of reasonably light, we could actually get some nice subdued even light across the scene rather than specular highlights. But we'll wander on and seize what we can seize. Back to the little scene that I wanted to shoot, and the autumn leaves, kind of where I wanted them, look much better now. In the distance, the leaves are still very green on those trees. One of the things I'm going to really teach myself over these next couple of months is tree types, woodland types. I think it's important as landscape photographers that we get to know our landscape, and I'm very poor knowledge of the trees in the wood. A little bit bright, hang on. There you go. Not only helps from a kind of knowledge of the area, a bit like tide times and estuaries and things like that, but you know, just knowing, are those leaves going to turn or not? Or are they just going to fall off? Light is coming to my right, your left, and that again is illuminating those trees, and that's actually giving us some lovely depth to the image. My one little sort of limitation or concern is there is a little sapling just in front of the tree, the main tree in question. Now it is a little bit frustrating, but there's not a huge amount I can do about that. But certainly Nice autumn leaves, nice autumn colour. Now that light seems to have sort of reduced a little bit, so the other thing as well is more of those leaves now falling on the floor. We do get a little bit of a sort of an all-burny sort of amber burnt tones on the forest floor, so I might actually be able to include this in the frame as well. So I was hoping for a little bit of drizzle. It did say drizzle this morning, and again I think I said this last time, that would help sort of just add a little bit of diffusion in the background, but we'll go ahead and shoot this. Just got a polarizer on, 18:135 again on the XT2. It's okay, it's okay. The more I look at that little sapling that's kind of covering over the main tree, the more I know it's going to frustrate me. The problem is, the closer I go, I've just been wandering around handheld, the closer I go to the main tree, the more that I've got to point up into the air. And then what that does is it brings in a lot of the sky that's over that sort of ridge line. Now I quite like there's a bit of a curve in the ridge line, but I had hopes for this composition. I just think that I know that when I get it back I'm just going to be frustrated with that little sapling. I think my favourite part of the image is actually the two trees in the background taking on the light, but we'll wander on from this scene and we'll see whether we can get something else. But yeah, disappointed. This was one that I was hoping to come back to, and did get some wonderful views of some migrating birds flying over, which is always the way. You come out, even when you're disappointed with perhaps the image, just being outside. And I kind of was speaking to someone the other day about this, and sorry for going off on a bit of a tangent. The deeper, and it is, the deeper I fall in love with photography, and it is love, passion, the more I realise that it's not just about the final image. It's about being outside. It's about experimentation. It's about little sketches. It's about shots with the iPhone. It's about the expectation and the hope of light, and the reality and the disappointment of the reality. It's all of the failed mornings, the failed shoots. It's everything that just makes me want to keep coming back out with the camera. The deeper I go into this journey, the more I realise that it's all of that, not just the final image, which is a good thing because it's not often we get a very pleasing final image. Right, enough ramble. I love looking at chaos and trying to see whether I can make something of it. Now, I'll talk about this scene behind me in a moment. I was just pointing my camera down into this little area here. Now, there were two things that really sort of drew my eye. One, obviously, there's sort of little specks of autumn colour. But two, kind of every tree seems to have its own kind of character. Probably not an image here. But again, it's just about flexing those sort of creative muscles and seeing whether you can. And one thing I like to do is obviously put the camera into black and white film simulation mode, and then sort of just pan it about a bit as well, because looking to sort of see whether I can make something of the shapes and off the character of those trees, and removing the colour. Even if you're not going to be presenting this in black and white to finish with, sort of visualizing it in black and white will at least let you see tone, maybe some texture, and of course the shapes as well whenever you remove the colour. So this could be a scene that works later in the year when these trees are pretty much stripped bare and it really is just about the sort of skeletal nature of the trees. Anyway, back to the scene in hand here. So kind of shooting this sort of scene here, and the path sort of curves around to the left. This first tree has its branches sort of stretched over the top of the path, and so there's a lovely sort of canopy of sort of different autumnal colours. And then because again we have the light coming in sort of from the front of the scene, it's actually illuminating some of those trunks as well that just give a little bit of depth. So again, nothing too dramatic. Horizontal position, polarizer on. Nice little simple scene. And it has started to rain, so maybe we'll start to get a little bit of additional atmosphere, but as I've said many times before, the noise of the rain on the leaves, I love that about woodlands. So I've come across a little scene here that I quite like, and I think what's kind of drawn my eye to it is a bunch of trees all kind of almost in their own little group, but there's both lovely separation between them, and also they're not uniformly straight up and down. They've all got their own little kind of kinks and character. The other thing I quite like about them is they all, well, they have kind of separate colours or different colours. Well, two-tone colours. There's like a greeny sheen, and then there's more of a sort of browny sheen to some of them. And then of course throughout the frame you have got just a little bit of autumn colour. Now what I'm going to have to pay attention to is overlap and separation between those trunks. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get separation between all of the trunks, so it might just be a case of doing the best I can. Especially like on the left hand side, there's just a little grouping of trees that kind of I think work well together, so I'm going to have a little bit more of a play around and see whether I can get something that works. Quite like that. So that rains, as you can probably hear, is getting quite heavy now. Now, while that might bring a little bit more diffusion sort of in the depth of the image, it is reducing the light quite a lot, which is increasing, if I want to keep the ISO low, it's increasing my shutter speed. And there seems to have, decreasing my shutter speed. And there obviously seems to be a little bit more of a breeze, which means that we are getting a little bit of movement in those leaves, and I'm not sure that works. Sometimes movement of leaves, obvious movement of leaves on trees works well, brings a little bit of energy to the scene, but I think in this case it's a bit of a distraction, especially top right hand corner. So this is a nice little scene, and I can see me coming back to this little scene at various points. It's one of those that I'd like to come back to, even when the autumn colour has gone. Just the placement of the trees, I think, brings something nice to the image. So I think I said this last time we were out, this is a linear sort of out and back path, so I'm going to start making my way now back to the car. I've got a few bits and pieces to do later on this morning. Once again, really enjoyed this. Light perhaps wasn't again as optimal, but you know what, that sort of flattish light earlier on was actually reasonably kind to me in the woodland. Disappointed with that main scene that I came here back to, but never disappointed to be out with a camera. So, and this I think is going to be a scene that I'll want to come back to. Right guys, well, I hope you enjoyed once again another little ramble out. I reckon now here's the thing, everyone loves to talk about peak autumn colours. Don't get me wrong, I think that has kind of been and gone, whatever peak actually means. But to be honest, as we progress through November, and even sometimes into early December, you will still get the odd bit of, it's the odd flash of colour in the woodland as well, and I think that can actually work too. And certainly as we start to lose a lot of those leaves, the woodland takes on a whole different feel, where you can actually concentrate and focus on the skeletal nature of the actual trunks and the branches themselves, which can actually help out too. So looking forward to exploring these areas much more, and again, very local to me, which is a good thing because we're all locked in, locked down, locked up. Well, not locked up, rambling, time to go. Thanks again for watching, guys, and until next time, take care. Bye bye.